be here all night.
Grab your seats, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to start in just a couple of minutes.
Good evening. Bonjour le monde. Welcome to Knox Presbyterian Church and day 8 of VERSeFest. It's amazing to be back here in this room. We used to, the Ottawa International Writers Festival for about 5 or 6 years was here, and with VERSeFest now here, the walls are full of hundreds and hundreds of poets from around the world and writers, and I don't know about you, but I'm famished. This is my first public reading in 2 years. In fact, this day 2 years ago was the last time I attended a live reading. So I'm famished, I'm hungry, and we're in for a real treat tonight. We have 4 wonderfully talented poets: Liz Howard, Billie Chernicoff, Brecken Hancock, and Bardia Sinaee. It's traditional, of course, to begin every reading with a land acknowledgement. This is unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Algonquin. Of course, those are words. I mean, what does that mean? Well, each of us has to decide for themselves how we are going to process our colonial history and our genocide. I thought what I would do tonight is to read very briefly from, I don't know if you saw Friday's November 19th Globe and Mail. There was a wonderful piece in there What Canada Lost When Lee Maracle Passed Away. It's by Tanya Talaga. Of course, Tanya has been here to the Writers' Festival, and so was Lee. And I think maybe a few lines from this article will give us a sense of what we can learn from, what we owe our Indigenous ancestors. When Miss Maracle first started writing, she was told that no one wanted to read books by Indigenous women. So she started a petition to prove publishers wrong. She and other Indigenous women had to push their way into Canadian literature by the strength of their voices and an absolute refusal to be exiled and silenced. If you want to understand Canada, you have to listen to the voices of Indigenous women. Instead of righteously upholding the canon of Can Lit, Ms. Maracle demanded it be torn down. She believed the history of racism in colonial literature needs to be taught. So she did so in I Am Woman, her unflinching bestseller first published in 1988 about the consequences of colonialism on Indigenous women. It wound up being shortlisted for Canada Reads after nearly 3 decades on the market. No word is ever unheard, she wrote. Sound never leaves the atmosphere. Each one of her words was a call to action, an address to the world, to the skies, water, and land, a call to us. So, as a literary festival, I know VERSeFest and certainly the Writers' Festival is trying to bring Indigenous voices to the table because they're great voices. They're voices that want to be healed, they want to be part of the conversation, and they have a lot to say to us about everything. Everything. This is also November 20th, it's International Children's Day and the 32nd anniversary of the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of the Child, and the Republic of Childhood, which is a Writers' Festival offshoot, has been going into schools now for a few years, and we publish chapbooks after the poets and writers work with a class for 5 weeks. And I just thought it would be interesting to read a poem. This is from autumn of 2019, just before the pandemic. That was the last time we were in schools. And it's from Fisher Park Summit Alternative School, so it's a grade 7 class, and it's by Tess Robillard. Small, silent, insignificant. These 3 words are what we're told to be. You're too young. You'll understand when you're older. We're told our opinion doesn't matter, but we see things differently. We see kids on the street alone, and we're told to look the other way. But all we see is another kid, the same as us, no different. We see things the way they are. Our parents try to shape our minds to see things as they do, to remove our imagination, like getting pushed out of the nest, forced to fly, small, silent, insignificant. Who knows, some of these writers may appear on the stage of VERSeFest one day. Basically, kids are denied a say in their own future, and we're trying to change that one writing workshop at a time. Okay, now down to the heart of the matter. Former Ottawa poet and inwards editor, Bardia Sinaee was born in Tehran and currently lives in Toronto. He's the author of 2 chapbooks, Blue Night Express and Salamander Festival, and is here tonight to share with us his eagerly awaited debut collection, The Intruder. This is what House of Anansi Press has to say. In Intruder, acclaimed poet Bardia Sinaee explores with vivid and precise language themes of encroachment in contemporary life, progressing from plain-spoken dispatches about city life to lucid nightmares of the calamities of history. The poems in Intruder ultimately grapple with and even embrace the daily undertaking of living through whatever the hell it is we're living through. Friends, please welcome Bardia, Sinaee.
Nice clean microphone. Thank you, Neil. Thanks, Dave. This first poem is called Bloodwork. 1. Out with the sun and the jade. It is the squelching armpit of August when simply living is enough for people approaching each other with a put-upon look. This weather, what it does to you. Otherwise, one must always look ahead. The potted cuttings abound with late growth. The park is dedicated to the missing girl. Love is for the lucky and the brave. You will experience good health. 2. There's a joke about a juice box and a catheter the nurse with all the piercings likes to tell. But all is haste and consternation. The doctors are braced for an arresting discovery, consulting their palette of opiates, devising new ways to invade the living organism. Now that the counts are down, visitors are calm and deferential. You struggle to remember what they say, grateful at least that the counts are in. The nurse applies a swab and starts to spin. 3. If you have trouble keeping track of time, if you feel you're being punished, if you have trouble with basic tasks, lifting a water glass, no one will hold it against you. It's like when you were younger, someone is keeping an eye on you. It's getting dark, and someone is driving you home. This next poem is a poem about Ottawa, or oops, it's a poem about Toronto. One thing I had to say. Ample habitat. At first I thought it was music, the sound of a hammer dropping down 3 flights of scaffolding at the former Perth Avenue Methodist Church, a 40-unit loft conversion so plagued by setbacks, its billowing tarps, and idolatrous slogan, "Praise the Loft," have become as emblematic of the neighborhood as the railroad bells or the briny lard smell from the gelatin plant. At least nobody was hurt. Hating on this city is a rite of passage I embrace to demonstrate my love. City of delays, egregious detours, great rebar obstacle courses, of mid-rises aging without grace, like tulips. Remember the first place we looked at by the corner store at DuPont in Perth? A garish bachelor with pigeon wire on the window ledges. They ran out of applications, so we listed our references on a napkin. We visit friends in basements, converted factories, small, unlikely spaces where light must beg its way. Public meetings have concluded for the planned rail bridge, whose announcement last spring inspired apocalyptic lawn signs. Local property owners were suddenly concerned about the fate of a few Siberian elms. We keep to ourselves and adorn our rented strip with porch rail planters filled with frilly marigolds. To mitigate confinement, broaden your awareness of the accessible world. It's a new thing I'm trying. I spot a cardinal, then read about it for an hour on my phone. Last year, they nested near the brownfield developers recently filled with precast foundation. Both sexes have a song like shots volleyed from a ray gun. In courtship, males attempt to place seeds directly into a partner's mouth. So I appreciate, Neil, what you were saying about being famished. I too am famished, starving. This is the first real reading I've done in 2 years, and it means a lot to me to be able to do it here in Ottawa, which is where I started writing. And so it's very great to be here. It's so nice to see so many familiar faces. And thank you all for coming here. This next poem is for my friend Jeff Blackman. I think I can see him through the lights. Hey, Jeff. It's called October Idea. A breeze comes through the window bearing smoky autumn odors and a wasp. I've written about this several times already, how the wasp traces a line around the silence in the room. I want to welcome the world, all of it, even the guy scattering leaves with a gas-powered blower. To believe in something that, like a giant elm, presides over us even as it diminishes. When we were strangers at the gate, I was the little ingrate who pissed his pants in the airport taxi. Thankfully, those people have been replaced piece by rotting piece, like ancient ships. Their names and old scars painted on anew to propagate a memory of themselves. An example. After he captures the city of Kerman in 1794, Agha Muhammad Khan, whose castration at a young age should have invalidated his claim to the throne, decides to make an example of the city's inhabitants for sheltering the previous Shah. Men are decapitated, children blinded, and women carried off into slavery. The tyrant orders his men to gouge out the eyes of each man. The tyrant erects a pyramid of skulls. 40,000 eyeballs are gathered in a pile. Blind children wander to neighboring villages to tell what happened in Kerman or die of thirst. For a meal, blind beggars throughout the empire tell the story of Kerman's blind children, how they must be sheltered in secret, out of sight, for the new monarch will not tolerate opposition. A period of relative stability begins. Triptych for Jesse Eckerlin. The hand and wrist in the kitchen window slice a tomato. Is this some sort of riddle? You can look at something over and over without knowing. Open the front door, flip to the middle of a book. The bay window is a Bosch painting. Blood-smeared children with feet for hands, rabbit-eared, bearded, beheaded, shriek and plead. It's night. The pumpkins are alight. As a child, he thought grass was called gorgeous. His mother would pull up the blinds and say, "Look, it's gorgeous." Please buy my book. I think it's at the table in the back, but if it's not, I have some in my backpack. It's funny, right before I was about to start reading, Stuart Ross sat down beside me, which is fate. It must be fate, because the last poem I was going to read is called Otsu, and I started this poem in a workshop that Stu ran in Toronto way back before the pandemic. Otsu. Stewed peppers on a low table, They share their precise impressions of you. Why attend to the dream, knowing it too will be written over? Your leaves are opposite, candor and austerity joined at a node. Beaming yoke of sun, the poults think the heat lamp is their mother. The river pours itself into another, longing to be free. Which systems theory concerns the villagers sifting rubble and ash? They should keep it brief and just chant the most moving sutras. The sky is so blue, it's sad. The actor would like tears of her own. A beloved feeds you fictions from the edge of the bed. The grain of millet stands for the young man's resilient character. Coiled snake or fan belt, splash, I make water by the road. What is it to come of age downstream? The free boat tours are fully booked. So long painted seascapes, they've replaced the word remission with a bell. The question is, does it end with a wedding or a funeral? The boy is inconsolable. There will be no trip to the car wash. Such outsized moments rise to the surface like Brazil nuts. Balancing a tea tray. The middle child is born as night falls. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Bardia. Billie Chernicoff is the author of 4 collections of poetry, The Red Dress, Waters of, Bronze, and most recently, Amoretti, published by Lunar Chandelier Collective. Other recent work may be found online, including A Sail on Lake St. Clair. She lives between the Catskill Creek and the Hudson River in upstate New York, where she publishes a print journal of new writing, Salt. Dr. Cicero Books, who published The Red Dress, supplied this rather intriguing and quite exotic morsel of biography. Billie was conceived in the free Hanseatic city of Hamburg by a soldier and a ballerina, born left-handed in Detroit and educated at Bard College. Please welcome Billie Chernicoff.
Thank you for being here. Thank you, Magi and Evan Lee and all you volunteers, poets and listeners. This first poem I'm going to read is published in the first print edition of a magazine called Sejura. I'm shamelessly hawking their website also, full of marvels. From true stories, in which I'm exploring what a story is in numbered sections. How's the mic? Is that close enough? Up? Better?
Yeah, perfect.
1. I doubt Socrates said benevolent moon or even restless longing, certainly not tin can. Would have asked, is it true? Can you know? Might have asked Isis, is that your ibis? 2. May your archetype coo, a dove-like obsessive maker of bouquets, each symbolic blossom an invitation to tea in a glass house, where considering lilies might take an hour at least, an era of privacy with such courtesies petals tremble. 3. True story, the book having been left open, plash, from its pages sprung she, to scythe she light without hesitation lifted, she grails, juggled nails, bales, codfish gales, tendered all her questions, she, on bended knee, befriended he. 4. Pensive as a rowboat, among lilies she would drift, Or all ceremonious, hold the thing right firmly. Though uncertain she, chasing a moth pointing there, arose in case of emergency. This must be poetry. Where is thy symmetry? Not lost, only playing, said she. 5. She chased her ball to the east, she plied, she shoot her stick thither, falla, skirt and trousers. She sang, forgive me, I am a loud child. 6. Enchanté, nada, nada, nothing am I if not cross. In a sensual way I wash my groceries like grimy children, never absently, who cares? Everyone's little apricot, oh, my humble Easter oyster under a worm moon. Wait, did you say worm moon? I said crow, crust, sap, Pascal, free for all, yes moon, well, I am over it, over that moon, me, a naif of a worm with no prospects, no future to speak of, dreamless. 7. Après un rêve, I wake to find this is the only day. Sirens just as they are serenade me, and sorrow just as it is, and sequins on the asphalt, and ghosts. Ghosts. So there was a day before this one, ours, to squander, a made-up word. Yestreen I did not know how largely I could live this ordeal like love. 8. Never drunk is ever drunk, who knew? Even my hat is news to me. Et j'aime mon chapeau, et j'aime mes enfants, tous les trois, quelle surprise. With 3 name-day saints, 30 toes, and 30 questions I don't know the answer to. How alarming. They're all over me. In my sobriety, I feel like a crystal they shimmy up, and drunk, I feel like a green hill they tumble down over and over, but never again, always anew, and like a pretty spotted sow, I pleasure grunt and half complain, mais en français, pourquoi pas, since who knows what language a crystal or a spotted sow or a never-ending green hill really speaks. 9. In this story, I psychoanalyze myself and find beauty in restraint and in excess. I teach myself things unorthodoxly, become the embodiment of Sodad, a bizarre and gorgeous nostalgia for what never happened. Like Scheherazade, I see the beauty of accidents and spectacles, so fearful I will fall, and I do. I see the beauty of fear, and I see the middle ground as the most extreme, most dangerous place to be, where you can't escape one thing in the arms of another. 10. In this story, I submit to a riotous music opposite to the museum-like coolness of a marble forehead, opposite to beauty itself, even to a curved line or lines, say your lips saying what can't be said, whose voice sounds like cedar, tastes like the sun, speaks its name like a lover deep through the belly. It's one story, it's 1001. 11. You clouds of so few words who act like Shakespeare, I applaud you from my balcony, a standing ovation. 1 moon's enough for you, Lorca, and for that I applaud you like castanets. Shameless moon and clouds, shameless Federico. Let's lie down and not do anything in every octave. Let us submit ourselves to every word, every letter, and to the silences also. Let us devote ourselves. 12. 3 birthday guests for Carlos Lara, a true story. A dapper man with camera eyes who sees only what lies under. Under what? Under water, under gods, underlings, under skirts, under things. He has a cane tappity-tap, a ruby in his shoe for you. A bluish woman sweating honey. Goodness, what a pretty frock, pretty sticky, pretty smile, one of the ones that can't help itself. Is it okay to sit on the couch? An upside-down child in the vestibule with a little nosegay of waves. Aw. Or is that awful child Carlos, who, once having seen a wave, never stopped? 13. Here you are, fish, my birthday wish. Let us lose ourselves in minutiae, you, in tune ichthys, feverish, glamorous word, never shush. 14. I was pedaling in no rush. True story, with a broken pedal, hull studded with arrows. I almost said sorrows. My enemy's way of cheering me on, they singing from both banks, and me in my blue burqa humming along with the secrets. 15. A woman sitting with her arms crossed turned out to be just a break in the weather, while the one pouring water was just like a poem, a musical breeze, and the book in my lap just roared. I held out a sprig that flowered suddenly, maybe a remedy, just a suggestion. And the traitor hanging from it by his heel, a swaying chrysalis, forgave himself, just as a crisis forgives a solution, and love forgives card games and things that just happen. La foi, la loi, magic and foolishness, the embarrassment of desire. And the last section, 16. There's a warehouse of tarot paraphernalia, finders keepers. If you don't mind wading through the obvious hexagrams, snakes and ladders, blemished roses and tarnished mirrors, the ear, the antler, the cross, and the teacup, diminishing ice, and the more quotidian couches and spatulas, loaves of bread and fountain pens, some with books still in them, thin blue, black, or scarlet rinds, requiring only a little water to wet their lips, and a pair of shoes that might have been sewn by Bone himself, with mice nesting so sweetly inside you can't bring yourself to disturb them. November is the month of elegies. I learned that from the poet Robert Kelly, and this is an elegy, not a sad one, in memory of a poet and filmmaker Franz Kamen. I spent one afternoon with him and some other people working on his concert of doors, in which he moved doors around in a landscape. We went tramping through the woods and then sent people through them and filmed them. Through blade-shaped, light-filled crevasse, through the illusion chalice, null between the profiles of two lovers, or any such ruse, wound, pleasure, calamity, or other heresy hereby christened door, but also through such nebulae as hope, doubt, despair, hellfire, hilarity, and through love, as you well know, we go. Sudden thresholds along the sunlit boulevard, like afternoon prayers, doors circulate among us, and we, their music, neither beseeching nor exalting, just being here, playing along, calling things by their names. Going through to find ourselves nowhere, we dark woods, wild dogs, grails, betrayals, one terror, one failure after another. Even now we are threshed. I say we, but I alone don't know the question. I alone fail to ask. In the interlude, hips speak to me in their wisdom. Clouds drift through the pelvic bowl of mind to yours. Whoever you are, I've long dreamed of kissing in dark, recurring hallways. Forgive me for want of a better vocabulary if I call you simply you. Thou, adore, my only prayer. Feeling along for the edge of a door, someone's apartment I've lost the address of, strange city in which I am not lost. The body desiring is not lost, the body remembering not lost, the dreaming body never lost, speechless, but singing away on this hunter's moon I want only to be, beyond wanting, beyond hunting. Beyond wanting, a door opens, less a rectangle, more a dragon. She lifts her voice, whose flaming letters describe a splendor solace, the place we've been looking for all along. Oh, body of our bodies, those crises of becoming, contra naturam, works of art, angels and swamp creatures, oh, the intelligence of love, telling us what we've always known, that accidents of light obscure. So we can go home to the sweethearts and gardens we call heaven. The sun says it's time, and time is round, and we can go home. Or we can squeeze through smallest vowel, the O in octopus, A in clam, clammed up with clamorous, scandalous, amorous moon. You can see if you close one eye, calm, glam, little clam, way up high. Clam, moon, octopus, you and I all breathe together, in love with each other, the sea, the gull, or names of clouds, or history, those names we remember in reverence, or in lust, or mirth, and in more sorrow than we can say, though we try. As the parable goes, it is our nature, this constantly unfolding, enfolding, unfolding tenderness. How could you know what you cannot know if that moon, that pebble, that rickety chair, and I were not breathing alone? Too weird to think about. The sky turns indigo, then darker. Even in houses we are uneasy and drink wine, eat our portion of meat or gingerbread, ripe pears give us pleasure, we mend our Torahs and Iliads, make love or revive an argument, watch a game or play a hand, and after a while we take off our clothes and wash ourselves, array ourselves in old frayed cotton or nothing, or scraps of silk, and lie down. How weird. We all fall down and close our eyes as if beauty had just pricked her finger. A giant wing brushes over us all. Dreaming on our sides like garden Buddhas, or on our backs, earthlings suspended in pods over eons, breathing gently like oceans, or children on our bellies, knees drawn up, thumbs in our mouths, or arms flung out, legs drooping over the edge of the bed like tulips waiting to be born. And there we meet the Fisher King, the Anima Mundi and Minotaur. There we're given the magic mirror and seven-petaled rose, and there we're assigned the impossible task, and there we cry for help. There a stone falls from the sky, there a boat comes across the sea to us, there a door opens, there is a dove who turns into a girl who plays with our children while we dream. Franz, I must be dreaming, because there is no blood, no wine, no night in our veins, as we carry our threshold through the mist, because there is no hour, no afternoon, nor any month as beautiful, as mystical as November, only in dreams. And no one is trying to make love, because we already are, and everything is, each twig, caw, step, though gravity is nothing to us. We consent, that is all. We listen as one, consensual. We set the door down in the air.
Thank you, Billie. Brecken Hancock's work has appeared or is forthcoming in Tolka, Hazlitt, Best American Experimental Writing, and Best Canadian Poetry. Her first book, Broom Broom, won the Trillium Book Award for Poetry and was shortlisted for the Relit Award, and was named by the Globe and Mail as the debut of the year. She has been nominated for the Pushcart Prize, was a finalist for the RBC Emerging Artist Award, and has read at the American Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. as part of the U.S.-Canada Capital Poetry Exchange. She lives right here in the big city. Please welcome Brecken Hancock.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Neil. And thanks, Dave. Mike. I'm this year's poet in residence at VERSeFest. So I just want to take a minute to, before I start reading, to say a little bit about what that sort of means to me. It's an honor to be here as the poet in residence, especially on the monumental occasion where we can come back together after last year being all online. And I think it's been longer than 2 years for me that I've been at a mic, and so this is feeling a little, I think Billie said dazzling. I feel that. I've lived in Ottawa for 9 years now, and this city has welcomed me so warmly that I feel grateful and lucky to be a writer here and to be a human being here. So many of the hosted events here at VERSeFest are series or magazines with which I have a personal connection. So ARC, Tree, Plan 99, Inwards, and the Ottawa Writers Festival as well. I want to thank David, Ben, and Catherine for Poets Nights Out. I want to thank Shane, Catherine, and Rod for reading and rereading the piece I'm going to read tonight a million times. And I want to thank Monty Reed for inviting me to be the poet in residence this year. And beyond that, I just feel that Monty has, since I moved to Ottawa, been incredibly supportive of my work and has always been thinking of me for things like the Capital Poetry Exchange, which he organized. I want to thank Ottawa Writers Festival for allowing me to be part of this lineup tonight. I'm honored to be reading with Bardia, Billie, and Liz. Thank you, all of you, for sharing the stage with me tonight. So I'm going to read from a new piece, an excerpt from a new book that I'm working on. I'm not launching a book here tonight, although this section will be published in this month in a journal called Tolka. And I'm going to read an excerpt of that. It's the first of a 4-part series that will be my next book. And for those of you who know me or who know a little bit about me, you will know that it's been a really long time since Broom Room came out. I am reminded daily of how long it's been since it's the same age as my firstborn son, and he just turned 7. I want to mention this partly just because I'm a confessional poet. My first book is confessional, and what I'm going to read tonight also is. Since I published my first work, which was about being a daughter and struggling through that relationship from the perspective of a daughter, I've become a mother myself now. And it's taken me a long time to find my footing and to find my voice as a woman who's now responsible for others, and as someone who wants to claim adulthood without really knowing what that is. And I'm over 40, so I've long since been an adult, and I still don't really know what it means. So this piece represents an exploration of that struggle. And before I read, I want to thank one last person who is my translator, Miriam Legault, who's here tonight, and she has translated a part of this work, which is on the VERSeFest website. So thank you all for coming to listen to me tonight. I'm going to read a little bit of Brave in Bed. I take my phone to bed, my husband on one side, my cell on the other. I face my cell. It starts with a skim of scalp. The cadaver of a Texan murderer who died of lethal injection was encased and frozen in gelatin, then ground down on the axial plane 1 millimeter at a time. He wasn't sliced. In a university lab in Denver, a motorized rotating disc of sandpaper scoured him away, turning him to frozen, cadaveric dust. Each milling of his corpse revealed an aerial view of viscera, a slab of anatomical features as stratum by stratum, his head came open, and utter darkness was amputated into light. They shot photos of him, the remainder of him, of it, the rock-hard and shiny top of a stump that had once housed an appetite and an imagination. I'm not moralizing. I love looking. These same layers of meat stack to make me. He was a murderer. To eliminate a witness during a burglary, he repeatedly stabbed a man and then shot the same man 3 times. He was convicted and sentenced in Texas, where they put some kinds of criminals to sleep. He ordered cheeseburgers for his last meal and then refused to eat. The prison chaplain pressured him to donate his body to science, but he never knew that he'd be polished down, head to toe, for me to look at. What am I looking at? A body is atoms, a branching nothingness. I flip through his leaves. Where was he in here, in these pieces? You know the he I'm talking about. Sometimes I feel absolute, but not tonight. Lying in bed, I release Joseph Paul Jernigan, the 65 gigabytes of his data and the blue light of my phone back to the nightstand. Dark tars the room. Our humidifier pitches white noise over the bed, and my accumulated slices of eyeball stare toward the ceiling. Skin chafes against a snag in the cotton comforter. We need better linens. IKEA's thread count is bullshit. I wish someone would tell me what sleep is or how to achieve it. Every night I come to this bed like someone thirsty who's gone to the sink. I want to show up here and drink, ingest the molecules of the room, knit the ingredients of darkness into my darkness, quench what's tired in my cells, come away sated. But the ritual is more spell than transaction. There's no material here to slake exhaustion. I've slid my spent body down into blackness, only to be stormed by the spiny debris of my consciousness, the mind's assault of the mind. Nerves snarl, the heart beats at the thorax from beneath. One by one, the hours dissolve, and I feel their loss as grief. I spend the night in the amplified consciousness of a fool. Google informs me that cells in the human body die and are replaced at varying rates. It takes 6 days to get a new cervix, 2 months to get a new trachea, 10 years to get a new skeleton. Neurons, the cells that make up the nervous system, spinal column, and brain, don't die. But all of the atoms in the human body, including those that constitute neurological cells, turn over. The top 30 layers of the epidermis are expired cells that slough off and become household dust. I touch my husband's naked back, there, where he's already dead. Sometimes my husband wears pajamas, but tonight his skin lies long beside me. I put my forehead against his spine and smell laundry detergent and farts venting up from under the sheets. A song creeps into my head and spirals on repeat, a mechanical nasal melody from a cute computer game I played in my 20s. I love you, warm baby, I love you. I want to wake him for sex, but he has an early meeting. In protecting his sleep, I feel virtuous and heroic. He should thank me. Maybe I'll wake him for that. I don't wear pajamas because I'm not 10 years old. In our waking lives, my husband and I divide administrative and household labor. He cooks and decides where things go in the shed. I list shit on Kijiji and launder the piles of textiles that must advance from hamper to basement to closet every Saturday. I chose the tog of this duvet. I'm too hot and have only myself to blame. I watch the ghost of a window behind curtains, a wedge of orange light under the door, red minutes counting themselves to morning. My breasts run across my ribs like raw egg. I recline in a pool of thighs. I get up to go pee. We have a couple of kids asleep in other rooms. 2 little cuts I bleed through. I slip past their closed doors, trying not to wake them. The bathroom window leaks so much streetlight it could be day, and whatever's happening out there, the world wants to fall asleep and forget it. My phone vibrates. Dad, Egypt, Standard Time, says things are going well on his cruise. Now I'm thumbing through photos of the kids because nostalgia is the most potent form of love. Eventually I set down my phone and pull up my panties. I drink from the faucet, then look out from my head into the mirror. Time is hard to observe as it's passing, but then it's there, obvious, all at once. Fuck, my face. Anatomists refer to eye sockets as orbits, the emptiness in the skull that holds planets. Space has weight, a shape, and a gravity. Space has weight, a shape, and a power. There's gravity beneath my eyes. When I come back to bed, he's on my side. I growl. In sleep, he's single. Absence from our bed is my erasure. The mattress feels hot to the touch, and I shove him over with both palms. There's no one to talk to. His back curves away from me. Sleep is sovereignty. Every night I come to this bed like someone thirsty who's gone to the sink and can't remember what brought her there. I turn toward my cell. Those who sleep less than 8 hours a night die sooner. Children need 13 hours a night to be happy. Sleep less, live longer. Infants who die suddenly do so in their sleep. Sleeping more than 9 hours can have some pretty scary consequences. Sleep disorders have major consequences. Those who sleep less than 4 hours will suffer consequences. Cardiovascular disease, depression, diabetes, and even dementia can develop. 21% of fatal car accidents are caused by a sleepy driver. Regular oversleeping means a 44% increased risk of death. You won't believe the amount of sleep that can kill you. Thank you.
Thank you, Brecken. Liz Howard's debut collection, Infinite Citizen of the Shaking Tent, won the 2016 Griffin Poetry Prize and was shortlisted for the 2015 Governor General's Award for Poetry. Her second collection, Letters in a Bruised Cosmos, was published by McClelland and Stewart in June 2021. Howard received an Honours Bachelor of Science with high distinction from the University of Toronto and an MFA in Creative Writing from the University of Guelph. She is of mixed settler and Anishinaabe heritage. Born and raised on Treaty 9 territory in Northern Ontario, she currently lives, writes, and teaches in Toronto. Please welcome Liz Howard.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction. Monty Reed for inviting me to be here again. I think I read here a few years ago, I think maybe 2016 or 2017, at VERSeFest as well. It's right in the same room. So it's great to be back, and an honor to be in front of all of you here and not quite here, I suppose. And an honor to read with my fellow readers, Billie and Bardia and Brecken. And Brecken, I hope we have a chance to talk after. I always feel a deep connection to your work, and so many resonances between your work and my work. And I don't know if it'll come through in this reading, but maybe. So I'm gonna try something. Hopefully I don't go over time, but I'm gonna read a sequence from this current book. Superposition. I've gone too far, and now I'm over my head in the river. Its rapids stained red with tannins, leached from the decay of wood and other plant matter, lilies and reeds, kept squashing river of weeds, bifurcating its way north to the Arctic. I'm 6 and unable to swim, my small limbs pushing against the cross current, feet waterlogged in the silt. The overcast sun seems to make the water hum its color, something cousin to blood. In the developing mind, to think a thing is to make it happen. This is the end then, here below the surface. A voice shooting through me like a warning, a dark closing in with the storm clouds, when another swimmer grabs hold of me and drags me back up to the light. Probability cloud. The universe broadcasts its lifespan in radiant heat. I need to believe my account will outpace its ending. Technical oracle, a feed that repeats itself, a reckoning. What I felt was complete disorientation, but the sky is more than a map to read into the end and origin of everything. There is a guilt that folds into me like humanity, a darkness in the signal, a mark science confides as evidence of another universe, the collision of an afterbirth. If I continue, can I hold the body beyond its contact traces of violation and intimacy? The palimpsest furniture of our specious present, a succession of excess. I am here, after all, for decadence and silence. See this decadence, a bloom beneath the skin of my invitation, not truth, but surface. Superposition. Superposition. Having surfaced, could it be said that I came into self-consciousness again through an act of purging, accessory to the second mind, housed in the middle, a neural web around the viscera, gut feelings and heartbreak? I'm handed some paper towels and a bottle of Windex and told to clean up after the half-wild dog that has been living in our back porch. As I open the door, sunlight catches in the bottle and projects a dancing sapphire blue back into the hallway. On the other side, the dog has pissed and defecated all over the floor. He comes to greet me, but the smell is making me retch, and I can't help but throw up onto the mess. The dog begins to lap up my sick, which makes the whole thing worse, and I retch again. Then, accidentally vomiting on his flank, which he then bends his neck around to lick. It is in this moment, at the age of 7, I believe I had what psychoanalytic theorist Julia Kristeva has called an experience of abjection. A breakdown in the natural order of things, a separation between the self and an object of disgust that suggests death. Somehow my mind was lifted up to the ceiling, and I could see myself with total vulnerability. It wasn't just nausea that I felt in my stomach, but a true separation between myself and the world, all its unpredictability that I'd be tasked with weathering. 7 is the canonical age of reason, my grandmother instructed me. Now that I am cognitively responsible for my sins, I must confess them in order to be in communion with the divine and avoid hell or purgatory, the waiting room for souls. The confessional booth was at the back of the church, and I had to walk past all the pews of parishioners who watched me. The booth smelled of adult sweat, and a man sat on the other side of a little screen who would forgive me. I could never bring myself to say that at a dinner party a father had performed a magic trick where he closed his hand around a small toy, and when he opened it again, it was gone. I asked if he could do the same to me. He laughed nervously and said he could try, but he might not be able to bring me back. I said that was okay. And from how his face fell, I could tell what I'd said was wrong. It was wrong to want to be a part of nothingness. Father, is it something dark in me that wants to be held so close I disappear permanently? Letter from Halifax. I just walked the street of my father. The street is called North. I paused in front of his white apartment building as the sun fed me from the west. There were 2 shopping carts chained together, one from the liquor store. My father turned empty bottles into full ones and into rent. He pushed his cart across the city, gathering emptiness. I wonder if the North was the repository of his best intentions. He left when I was an infant. Powerless over drink, he ran, jumped the track, and erased himself from public record. He became a shadow I couldn't match. Every native man on the street, the unidentified dead in government databases. I searched their faces to see if they were a part of me. Would-be astronomer in his youth, I learned also to try and cast my gaze upwards. When I look at the Pleiades, I see 7 sisters who could hold me. In Anishinaabe cosmology, the constellation is known as Bagane Gishik, the hole in the sky, a portal between this world and spirit, where I go when I dream, and if anywhere, the place I'll find him again. I'm trying to write this as I sit in a Tim Hortons, waiting to meet his common law spouse who will give me some of his personal effects, when a man next to me asks, "What does this word mean?" pointing to a spot on the page of a Maclean's where the word rapport appears. I landed yesterday in Halifax. My aunt had called to say he was here in hospital with liver failure and in a coma. The doctors would give him 48 hours to come out of it. I had the thought maybe, if I go to him, he'll wake up. My father's skin had yellowed, and the sclerae of his eyes, which were half open but clouded. A tear slid from the corner of his right eye to pass the bone of his indigenous cheek. This tear had not yet dried when they began to withdraw life support machine by machine. What kept him breathing, what jerked his head back and expanded his chest with decreasing regularity, was the last to be withdrawn. A nurse said, "He is in the process of actively dying now." Actively dying. In the ancient Near East, a seer would look to the stars or the livers of sheep for divination. What does the liver show or hold? Sparina, the Haruspex, foresaw the death of Caesar and the entrails of a sacrifice. Pagak, the cursed Anishinaabe skeleton who flies through the boreal forest, is said to consume the livers of his victims. Prometheus's punishment for stealing fire from the gods was to be chained to a rock and have his liver torn out daily by an eagle. Every night his liver would regenerate. 2 days have now passed. 2 days I have been in Halifax. 2 days since my father has passed from mystery into appearance, laying bare his totality on a deathbed. distended cirrhotic belly, and a thoroughly beautiful face. He passed from unknowing into eternity as I watched the neon lines above him lie flat. I am still watching. I still do not know what I know. A nor'easter now passing over me, spilling its moisture from the Atlantic. Heavy rain that by midnight may turn to snow. What does it mean to actively die? Actively. I've been reading Knausgaard, who writes, quote, "For the heart, life is simple. It beats for as long as it can, then it stops," unquote. Full stop as a period is a flat line when extended. I have been given my father's papers, his Polaroids, and a pocket watch that belonged to my great-grandfather. I have been given his ball cap that kept the maritime sun out of his eyes as he scavenged for bottles. The band of this hat has collected his scent, which is lemongrass, earth, and discount smoke. I have been given his small tools, cologne, nail clippers, a water canister, a small plastic box of razors, a picture of me as a baby, a drawing of electrical currents, a knife. I'm here wedged within 3 nor'easters. The first fell after he died. The jaundice, the eyes that are mine, the snow will white out of every street. The third will come Tuesday and cover Halifax in a foot of lace. Today I bought Ocean by Sue Goyette, a black dress and a pair of tights. Today I ate berries and drank black coffee. Today I felt the harbor folding in. A sphere flinched in my portal vein. Today I woke up late. This evening I looked up at the constellation Orion, Bibuini Kionini, the winter maker. Tomorrow I will see my father's body for the last time. Tuesday he will become ash actively. And just 3 more, each take like 1 minute to read. And I'm good for time. Father's Day. The undertaker doesn't warn you about the consistency of the ashes. Not like those of, say, a cigarette. Scattering them will not be like when you used to blow into the ashtrays of your grandparents' house, as if blowing the fluff off of dandelions gone to seed, for which you were gently scolded. The human form is difficult to destroy utterly. When fragments of your father's bones thud against the ground of his wishing, forgive yourself for the shock, the momentary turn in your stomach, when you see that his ash has caught onto your shoes and leggings and skin. Come to see this as your first and only embrace. Superposition. The red I perceive is daylight filtering through the capillaries of my eyelids before they open into a void on the edge of this city. From a bare mattress, I hear a man's voice like a passing freight saying that he will end me if I don't behave. A mark darkening on the inside of my arm, the size of a thumb, where another universe collided with this one. If I don't survive this, I worry, what will he do with me? What if no one can ever even find my body? True value. The sky was never my court date. If I died once, if I left the body, habeas corpus, this is not my grave. The value in a dead woman is that she cannot be killed again or cross-examined. The value in being dead, the dead woman at trial, is the crown doesn't represent you regardless. The value in being dead is that it's impolite to speak ill of you. What is called wellness, victim witness? A swab taken of every orifice. Were there any identifying marks? Were you in fact on the moon that night, Miss Howard? Did you make a choice? I made a cut. It released something. I broke the line. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Liz. Can we have a big round of applause for Liz, Billie, Brecken, and Bardia? Thank you very much for the feast of your poetry. I know all of us feel nurtured and more whole after listening to you. And also for the wonderful tech crew as well, for the sound and lights. Tonight, just a reminder, at 9 o'clock, Zoom featuring Kuf Knotts and Christine Elise, founders of Higher Grounds Music. So it'll be a combination of music and spoken word poetry. It should be very fun. Don't forget, Christmas is coming, and it's important that we give gifts to our kids, our friends, our parents. Everyone loves poetry. And Jim from Perfect Books at the back, he's the official bookseller of VERSeFest and the Writers Festival. He's got a new bookstore, an expanded bookstore on Elgin Street, and he'd be happy to sell you multiple copies of each book, and the authors will be happy to sign. Thank you very much. Good night, good hunting, and maybe go straight home.